In this video, I'm going to pick up where we left off and keep talking about those three jQuery events. So the next one that I want to introduce is called Keypress. So Keypress is one of the ways in jQuery that we can add a Keypress listener to elements. So I'll show you on the docs here. If we go down to the event section and we look at key down, key press, and key up, these are three different events that are triggered when a user types something on the keyboard. And the differences are a little bit nuanced. So key down is fired anytime that we press a key, and it's fired right after we press it down. And then key up is fired when we release a key. And then key press is a little bit different. Some people will tell you that key press is fired when you press a key down and then release it, so that it represents the entire key press up and down, and that is not true. It actually fires in between down and key up, usually, not always. So I have a great Stack Overflow post that I recommend that you read. I want to point out this little piece here. So key down and key up provide a code indicating which key is pressed, while key press indicates which character was entered. So a good example of this is that if I have a text input and someone types Shift and then A, and they're trying to make an uppercase A, key down and key up will fire on the Shift key and on the lowercase a, versus key press will fire on an uppercase A. So it actually gives me the character, not just the keys that were pressed in what order, but the actual end result character when we use a modifier key like Shift. At the end of the day, the three different events are very similar, and most of the time you can get away with using any of them. And I'm going to show key press just because it's the most common. So key press works just like .click, where we select something with $sign. So here's an example. We select something with $sign, and then we chain on .keypress, and we pass in a callback function. And that callback function will be called anytime a key press event is triggered on the selected element or collection of elements. So I'm going to demonstrate that now. I'll go back to my HTML, and let's add in an input type equals text. Just like that, and we'll leave it at that. And refresh our page. Okay, so now we have an input here. And let's get some code that will just console.log anytime a key is pressed in here. So we'll open up the console, and we need to first select the input. So we can just do input like that. And that's not very specific. In this case, there's only one input, so that's fine. But if we had checkboxes, and if we had color inputs and radial buttons, we would want to specify only where type is equal to text. But for now, input is fine. Make sure we get it. All right, that selects it. Then we add .keypress, just like that. And then inside of here, we add our callback function, which will be called anytime a key is pressed. So in this case, let's just have it console.log you pressed a key. And hit enter. And now if I go over here and I type a key, so I'm hitting the letter P right now, you can see I get you pressed a key. And if I type another key, all it does is show me a number here. That's just how Chrome does it. But I'm getting a different console.log as I type for every character. So that's how we could console.log a character. Something that we often want to do is run some code depending on which character was pressed. We'll be making a to-do list app with jQuery where you can type a new to-do, like walk the dog, and hit enter. And that will then take the text in here and make a new to-do and then clear the input. So you don't have to click a button like submit, you just hit the enter key. So what we want to do is listen for a key press, but only do something if the user hits enter. In order to do that, we actually need to change our code a little bit here. So I'm going to just copy this, and I'll refresh the page and paste this back in. So we're still listening for a key press, but we're going to work with the event object. I'm going to add in an argument here. I'll call it event. And this object will just contain all of the information about the key press event. So I'm just going to console.log event so you can see that. And I hit enter. And now if I type, you can see that I'm console.logging an event every time. And this event tells me that type is key press. It gives me a timestamp. It gives me a few other things. One of the important parts is this char code 106. Also there's key code 106, and there's which right here. And they all point to 106. There are some slight differences, which I won't go into. We're going to just stick with which is the one that the jQuery docs use officially as well. So what this refers to is the code of the key that was pressed. So every key has its own code, and I can show you here. The JavaScript character codes. There's a page here that will interactively show you. So if I type, I want to know what the letter C, the corresponding code is, it's 67. If I want to check what enter is, I need to hit the enter key, which I'll do now, and it tells me key code 13. So that's one of the only ones that I know by heart, because we do this a lot, where we want something to happen when you hit the enter key. Okay, so let's remember that, key code 13. Go back to our code here, and all we want to do is write an if statement instead of our listener that says, if the user hit enter, so if event.which is equal to 13. That means that the user hit enter, and we'll just alert you hit enter, just like that. And I'll get rid of this for now, console.log. So a user types any sort of key press inside of this input. Then we have this event object that we now added to our callback, which was already, it was being passed in even if we left this out, but we weren't capturing it in a variable. So now we're capturing it in a variable called event. You'll also see this called E sometimes, but that can be called anything. Remember, it's totally up to you. And then we're checking if the which property is 13, which is the enter key character code. Hit enter. And now let's go over to this and we'll type some non-enter keys, and we don't get those alerts. We do get the console.logs because we set up the original listener up here. But now I'm going to delete all that, and I'll type some things, and then I'll hit enter. And now I get you hit enter. So every time I type enter, so I'll do it right now, it tells me you hit enter. All right, so that's all I want to show about Keypress. We'll be using this to make our to-do list in just a few videos from now. And we'll also be checking if event.which is 13.